considerations, though, it wasn't the support you and your supporters hoped for, but a very substantial chunk of the electorate did back you.
Well, I'd only been there 4 weeks. They said I was a stranger, a foreigner. I didn't know my way around. And yet 22% of the people voted for me. And we spent less than a tenth of what Labour spent on the election. In fact, they're quite probably in trouble for spending too much. So I think it's a remarkable election result that we pulled. The Workers' Party of Britain had never stood in an election before, and look what the result that we got. So I'm very happy about it. It is a surprise that the Labour candidate triumphed. I took 22% of her vote. I took over 8,000 of her votes. It's not quite clear where she got them back from.
Well, is it true that you're considering a legal challenge?
I've begun one, actually, not just on the overspending, which was blatant and brazen, not just even on the Labour-controlled council, 3 days before the poll, taking down thousands of my posters because the font size on the imprint at the bottom of the posters, not making this up, didn't comply with their policy, even though they complied with the law, as they've had to concede. But because I was the victim of relentless fake news in relation to an incident which had absolutely nothing to do with me, with an Islamist extremist shouting and harassing my Labour opponent outside a mosque. I was 100 yards away on the same side of the road as the Labour candidate. She claimed on television, which was endlessly repeated elsewhere, that I had been on the other side of the road laughing when she was being harassed. This is photographically and in video provably a false accusation. And it's a criminal offence to make a false accusation against an opponent in an election. So this result may very well be set aside.
Well, obviously, George, these allegations will be looked at. But in the meantime, something that you took votes from the Tories as well, the sort of pro-Brexit votes.
Well, of course, I'm very proud of my pro-Brexit stance. I doubt if it was the case, though it's not quite clear yet. The dust will have to settle and analysis made by pollsters and so on. It is worth making the point that the electorate was told throughout the campaign that I was polling at 6%. I got 22%. Another example of fake news.
Well, the Labour Party claims that your campaign was the divisive one.
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? Labour thinks it has an entitlement to the support of places that it represents. I heard your package there talking about bringing the community together. Batley and Spen has had a Labour MP and a Labour council for a quarter of a century. So I'm not sure why it's taken them so long if these problems exist. No, Labour thinks you're not allowed to challenge them. The establishment thinks you're not allowed to challenge them. I've just proved that there's a big audience for doing so.
What about Sir Keir Starmer? You said he had to go. He's safe for now, though, isn't he?
Yeah, in a way, I'm glad, wearing my party political hat. Labour, led by a desiccated calculating machine gone haywire, who couldn't connect with anyone. No one would follow him across the road, as at least half of all Labour members already know. Staying in place, it's good for me, it's good for the Workers' Party, but it's not good for Britain, because every country needs an opposition, and every opposition needs a leader. And Sir Keir Starmer is nobody's idea of a leader.
And finally, George, will you be standing at the next general election?
Oh, that's a long way off. We will be standing all over that local authority next May. I've just been in a meeting where we were laying down the code of practice and the methodology that we'll use to pick candidates to fight those elections. So the next elections I'll be in are next May, local elections. I'll not be a candidate, but I'll be leading the campaign.